Hello, happy Thursday.
Welcome back, District 1. We missed you.
Yay. So we're going to try to make sure that we're getting back to doing these virtual office hours. I know it's been a little bit, but it has been busy, and we wanted to bring you some updates and make sure that we were keeping in touch this way. And of course, we're always out in the district also, and you know that we are available for anytime that you need us down here if you want to call or email.
Yeah, we got some really good legislative updates. We had some really great visits in the community over the last couple of weeks, and we just have a lot to share, so we're really excited to be doing this again.
Exactly. I was going to say, here it is already Thursday, but this was a BCC week, which means that we had the opportunity to, look through a bunch of really great information and adopt some things, see some things pass. Actually, at the last BCC, we finally got the tree ordinance across the finish line. I know that it's not perfect. I know that we are continuing to look for opportunities for biodiversity in that tree canopy. But what this will at least provide us is the opportunity to protect some of the canopy that we have existing pre-development, so that if a development application comes in, what used to happen was just the clear, they call it mass grade, mass scrub. And so now there's actually a process that requires that tree inventory to be in advance, and that arborists will be able to evaluate, and the types of trees that we are protecting increases, right? We only had a handful of trees. We're now protecting more than that. We're protecting, the penalties are higher. So if people if they think it's not important, we're going to tell them it is important.
It is important.
It is important. So if you want the actual language from the tree ordinance, please reach out. I love sharing it. I know I'm a little geeky that way, but we're really proud of getting that work done. It was the better part of 3 years and a lot of staff time and effort and stakeholder engagement in order to get what we ended up with on that finally in the BCC agenda. So that went through, and then this week we actually discussed our wetland ordinance.
Yeah, what a month for the environment, which is appropriate since it's
Climate Week, but it's always Climate Day.
It's always
here,
Climate
right?
Day in our office.
Yeah, I think I like it when we can formalize those types of things and really try to raise the awareness. But I walked in here day one with some of these goals, and we're finally starting to see some of that language come through. I think EPD has done an outstanding job of trying to get updates to a code that was really just outdated. Our wetland code hadn't been touched in 30 plus years. And the science that we understand now versus then, it's so different. And what our community's overall landscape is so different. And so there was really these unbelievable loopholes in what were wetland impacts when a development opportunity came through, and trying to protect what we know is really critical wetlands. So trying to close those loopholes, huge lift. Our state of the wetlands, if you have not seen that, I would encourage you to go back to our YouTube page, go back to the hearing where there was the state of the wetlands, because they actually used drones, LiDAR, and did a mapping of our wetland and an inventory all across the county. And what it told us was a lot of things that we did know, which was that we're losing wetland in unbelievable amounts. But it also gave us a better idea of which wetlands we have seen the worst impacts on and why, which wetlands we've seen some growth in and why. And so the amount of information that was really accumulated during that wetland code update, we'll be able to use going forward as a baseline. Doesn't mean that we don't continue to get data. Doesn't mean that we don't continue to use data to drive policy, but we didn't have that baseline before this year, so that was huge.
Yeah, and I think tightening up a lot of the language was half the battle as well, right? So it's it's always going to be continuing, and it's I think you use the phrase a living document, always updating and kind of making it better as best we can. But to have that baseline was really, really helpful, and that was a labor of love. That was such a great presentation and so thorough.
Well, we're dealing with scientists who that's what they do, right? And they study wetlands and the ecosystems and what that means to all of us. And so for a policy wonk who doesn't know the science, oh my gosh, I'm so reliant and I'm so grateful for it. And to have that basis, the factual basis to be able to create the policy is where, really great things happen. And that without EPD's full commitment to that, we would be just spinning our wheels continually because we wouldn't know what was out there. And it was really exciting, Cami, when I got to Florida Association of Counties, they spoke about Orange County's wetland update and the mapping and what we're doing with our ordinance to protect wetlands. When we talk about water, that's regional, that's statewide, that's national, that's international.
It's a really great standard, and I'm so glad that they're championing it here. So.
Yes, no, exactly. And I just want to let you know, we are actually, we had talked about getting more information to you all about the update from this week. There was so much detail and a lot of very thick language. So I felt like being able to distill some of that and getting it out in chunks. We are still getting feedback. So if you have feedback about the wetland code, wetland ordinance, development process, any of it, please watch that hearing, take a look at the materials, and then let us know, because we're going to continue to give feedback. Drew will be able to share actually the link that has a survey and will allow you to give directly feedback to EPD. But if you want to give it to us, we can relay it also. I literally brought a stack of information with me to the dais on Tuesday that I had gotten from my friends and partners at various environmental agencies and other scientific entities, because I wanted to be able to have it all in front of me as somebody who really doesn't have that kind of expertise. So thank you for sharing if you have already. If you haven't, it's not too late, right? We haven't adopted the new language yet, but we're looking to do it by the end of the year. So sooner rather than later, please pipe in. We need you.
Yeah, I think that's about the timeline that they have expressed. So
yeah. All right, let's go down the list. So we have got on here wetland ordinance. The other piece of the BCC agenda that I think is really super important to share, because you all know it's been a huge investment that you decided was important to you, and the county is continuing to make these investments, is Green Place. Every single agenda for I think the last 3 has had acquisition contracts in them for Green Place. Green Place, of course, is our conservation mechanism in the county in order to be able to purchase land and put it into conservation and perpetuity. And so what it does is it pulls it off the market and it's owned by the people. And so that conservation is can be part of water recharge, it can be part of an upland buffer, it can be part of a wildlife corridor. And so those things are being evaluated on each of those parcels before they're purchased. So there was some gap time. When I first came into office, we were able to budget enough to really revitalize the Green Place program. But then you have to start looking for the properties. You have to have willing sellers. All right, so why is that important to you if you're sitting at home listening to this? Is that really the most success we've had in acquiring Green Place properties has been when sellers approach the county, or if somebody in an area has driven by a parcel and they've said, gosh, you know what? I know for sure that there were, eagle's nests in there at some point in the history of that parcel. The reaching out and letting us know, and we can actually start the process of investigating whether or not it would be a good opportunity for Green Place. So I want to put that on your radar. I want to brag about how many things are coming into Green Place. It's not enough, but we're getting more and more, and we're going to continue to work on that. And hopefully, if you have the opportunity to provide us with information about a parcel, you'll feel free to reach out to us with that information.
Yeah, we'll connect to the appropriate county departments.
Yes, exactly. All right, so what else do we have on our list? TDT.
We have a special session happening next week that is dedicated to TDT.
Okay, so we do the acronym thing here, and I try really hard to break it down because I hate that nobody ever breaks it down for the public, and I think it's really important. I started this entire video out probably saying BCC. Of course, that's Board of County Commission. That's the meetings that we have every 2 weeks. TDT, not to be confused with BCC or CRC, is the tourist development tax conversation that we've had recently about the unencumbered funds that the tourist development tax has brought into the county. We have various streams of revenue. And if you've watched the budget hearings recently, you'll know that the TDT is a very different revenue stream, and the state legislature requires a certain type of spending to be associated with tourist development tax dollars. So what that means for you and I is that we don't necessarily get to determine every single use, but it still means that we should be able to give our input, right? So I think that the mayor really set out with a great plan to get a tourist development tax task force impaneled, and to allow people on that task force to evaluate some needs and to give their feedback. I'm going to fast forward several months because they had a heavy lift. They worked so hard. But the matrix they were given sort of hemmed them in. And at the end of the day, their report came out with 5 main projects that were very high ticket projects, not things that would have been necessarily the everyday person or my everyday resident conversation priority. So on that list were the expansion of the convention center, the Orange County Convention Center, and Amway Center, the updates to Camping World Stadium, improvement to the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center, and they actually have a new project, a phased project, and UCF Sports. And there was many other really wonderful arts and cultural projects that came forward in District 1. There was actually a nonprofit that came forward looking for TDT funds in order to make their event for veterans even larger, because it's something that people traveled in to do. Challenge 22, which is it's a ruck, and people came in from all over the region to help with this fundraiser for veterans. And so it really was sort of an opportunity to look at it in more of an attractant for tourists. I, of course, love the idea of looking for funds to go back into some of our ecotourism. And so there's, this conversation has been really far and really wide. Yeah. So to bring it all back down to where we are right now, the Board of County Commission is meeting again next Tuesday to discuss the actual options available under the law, state law, and hopefully move forward with some of those priorities. It did not seem as though the Board of County Commission was in complete agreement last time we were all together. So I appreciate that the next step that the mayor took was to pull it out and make it its own hearing. Because quite frankly, the last time the BCC, the Board of County Commission, talked about this, right in the middle of the discussion, we broke for a press conference. And so we really had a hard time getting a discussion, I believe, that got down to what residents' concerns are. So I'm still asking to hear from you. I did a call out back when the task force finished, and I got feedback from dozens and dozens of residents who felt very strongly about tourist development taxes and the use. I still want to know your opinion on this, so please feel free to reach out. Let me know. We're talking about it on Tuesday, but even after that, we're going to continue to talk about it, because quite frankly, we're going to lobby the legislature to allow some flexibility in those uses. And there are other counties across the state that are also looking for opportunities to allow some flexibility, because right now, under the state statute, we can't use those tax dollars for infrastructure. Even though tourists impact our roads, they flush toilets, so we know their water is going to water treatment. They consume water, which means that our allocations of fresh water, that there is an impact that we don't have the ability to offset right now with those tax dollars. And really being able to provide that infrastructure and all those services is a benefit to the tourism industry. So I don't see those as being competing.
I also think that, you raise a good point with one can't exist without the other.
Right.
So it is all interconnected, and the language in the statute is pretty clear. It's pretty conclusive. I would encourage you to have a read through from the state. But it's
all available actually if you go to the comptroller's website.
Yes.
We'll put a link in.
Yeah, we'll put a link. But it is high time that we do something more with it, because we are one of the most visited locations in not just the country but the world. And we've got to be able to provide that same quality that they expect when they come to our attractions, just in our community, because otherwise how do our small businesses thrive?
That's right.
Without access.
Exactly. And I think, to think about investing millions and millions of dollars into a structure, an arena, a venue of some kind, and then not really provide a way for someone to safely get there or get out of there, or a way for workers to get there and to actually staff that venue, then it's not going to be viable or successful anyway.
Right.
So that, we can't isolate those concepts or those issues. And I do think that, a broader conversation needs to be had. And it makes me sad when we have this discussion and I feel like there's an us versus them. about it, because it shouldn't be. It's all for the same goal, right? If we want to see our tourism industry flourish, we need all those things, right? We want all those things. I don't know about you, but I have been on my way to what I would consider to be pretty high profile, well-known internationally areas of my own district to meet some friends for dinner, and had such a hard time getting there that I turned around and went home and just gave up. And then I thought, you know what, that business just lost out on my business. How many times does that happen? That you couldn't even get there because the infrastructure to try to do that is so depleted.
Yeah.
You know, and on the flip side of that coin, right in the shadow of some of our greatest commercial attractants there, our parks and our businesses, is the Tibet Butler Preserve. This area has an amazing draw, and they actually pulled for me their sign-in sheet at the Tibet Butler Preserve. People visit it from all over the world. From all over the world. It is literally an international, a site where people visit, but it's not even being considered. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why we're not looking for those opportunities, because that is something that would continue to benefit our entire population, not just our visitors. It bolsters not just the economy in tourism, but also our health and well-being. So why wouldn't we try to get the maximum use for those dollars?
Yeah, and even, being able to, at some point, hopefully through lots of activism across the state, being able to, see how we can allocate those dollars on a county level as well, because as you said before, they drive on our roads, they flush toilets, they have emergencies, they need to go to the hospital, they need to call the police. Like, this is all under the same blanket
of local government.
It's all local government,
That's
and it should all come from the same pot.
That's right. And so my hope is that, if not this hearing coming up, within, the next legislative session, that we're able to see some traction. Florida Association of Counties, it was fascinating to me when I met my colleagues from all over the state, and particularly in the most high trafficked and visited areas, Monroe County, where the Keys are, South Beach. I talked to the commissioner that represents that area, Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, that these are all areas that are feeling those same pains and want to know, can we have something that allows us to provide the infrastructure portion of this, whether that is, helping the workers in housing or transportation or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Water treatment, what does that look like? We don't know. We know right now under the statute that would be very difficult to achieve.
Yeah, and if we just at least get to a point where we can open up the dialogue, I think that's half the battle.
Exactly. Exactly.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. All right. Tuesday, tune in, like literally live, right? Like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So in order to make sure that we're kind of using our time well, because I know that I get really into all these things, I want to remind you all the other really important piece of staying tuned. Right now, the Charter Review Commission is meeting, and I mean not right this second, but right now on our calendars. Every 4 years in Orange County, because Orange County is a charter county, we have the opportunity as citizens to look at our governing document, our charter. Our charter is like our little mini constitution in charter counties. And so we have a group of citizen volunteers that are right now meeting once a month for their large meeting, but then they also have subcommittees that are meeting even more frequently in order to discuss topics that are of interest to the public. Many of you have already brought forward topics, which is incredible. And I love seeing that this has already begun to really take form of what citizens are interested in addressing. The one that's happening out in District 1, because each district gets one of these charter review meetings, is happening in October. So I want to make you aware that if you have been thinking for a while, why doesn't my government, my local government do this, fill in the blank, or my gosh, this frustrates me, this could be your opportunity.
This is your moment.
This is your moment. And I say that in, the broadest sense, because Charter Review Commission is what brought us the number of districts we have in our county right now. Charter Review Commission is what made us single district specific for voting when you go to vote. So it's been really interesting to watch the progression of the conversations happening at the Charter Review Commission, because they've backtracked a little bit to look at that history, understanding our challenges going forward. And there's been a couple things that I think that they are really moving in the right direction in their discussions. I think there's been some confusion. I listened to one of the discussions at the Charter Review Commission, I think last month, where one of the members didn't think that we should be counting for our own sort of resident numbers residents that also live in a city. And, I'm speaking for many of my residents that when they go to vote, during their local election cycle, that they get the opportunity to vote for a county mayor, a county commissioner, and a lot of times a city commissioner. And so, what this member on the Charter Review Commission said was, well, we shouldn't be counting those numbers. The county doesn't have to worry about those residents. And it just blew my mind, because I know that for my residents that I work closely with on projects in our, around our area, that we actually work so closely together, and some of those things require even more of our time because it requires us to go into a joint planning agreement with the municipality, or because the county is responsible for the road and the city is responsible for the sidewalk right next to the road. We've had to coordinate down to really specific, little blocks of street. And so those things, and each one of our residents has the opportunity to go to their city and their county leadership. And so that's a checks and balances that I would never want to give up, and I don't want you to have to give up. So there's some educational opportunities, I think, even for our Charter Review members, and some of those people have been in places of leadership. So I was a little bit floored to hear the misconception that once you're annexed into a city that you're no longer counted as a county. That's not true. No. If you live in the city of Winter Garden, the city of Oakland, and the city of Windermere, I'm your county commissioner and I can help you. Now, if it's something that falls squarely in a process of the city, I have a great relationship with the city, and I get to call them and say, hey, one of my residents is having a concern and this piece of it falls on us. Can you help with this other piece of it? And that's what local government's supposed to be doing for you. So, I'm looking forward to addressing the Charter Review Commission. I can't wait to talk about some of the things they're looking at, including the rural boundary. There has also been a perception that the rural boundary, which is an idea that Seminole County has put into its charter, isn't needed in Orange County because Orange County already has an urban service area. Well, I am here to tell you the urban service area is literally just a line on a map. It has done nothing to really mitigate any of the sprawl or growth outside of the urban service area. And in fact, can often be used as a way to avoid requirements that we would want to put into a development plan. And let me give you an example. A large commercial entity going outside of the urban service area right now maybe doesn't have to connect to sewer. And even though they're a large entity, they may be able to put in septic, even if they're 45,100 square feet, because right now they're outside the urban service area. It doesn't necessarily stop them from coming forward for an approval of that use. So what we find ourselves with a lot of times here is that we don't have to require someone to do something because they're outside of an urban service area, but we can't stop them from going to use it that way because there isn't anything right now in our governing documents that does that. Now, Vision 2050 ideally will really, I think, give predictability to those areas of growth where, yes, this is going to be considered an area that is identified for growth. This is not. And so that we can say with predictability when an application for development comes in, that it falls into a category. Right now, there's just ambiguity, and anybody can come forward with any plan for what they want to do as a private property owner with their private property. And even if that private property lies in a rural settlement, even if that private property is zoned agricultural, somebody can come through and ask to put something in there that we then have to respect their property rights and put through the process. So I would encourage the Charter Review Commission to take a look at Seminole County's charter amendment to understand some of the challenges we see coming through the VCC every 2 weeks in trying to provide predictability to our residents who believe they are in the rural service area, and understanding that we want to make sure it's understandable for everybody. So if there's a line that says this is the urban service area, that seems predictable and understandable, and that should make sense I think that should make sense to many people.
Yeah, and this is really an exciting part of living in this county, is having the ability to go back and revisit this document and share your opinions and speak to the members of the committee. It's a really, really great blessing that we have for having the charter. So.
It is, and I think, like I said, the history of us being able to sculpt our government to meet the needs of the people this is that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that, don't miss it, because once it goes, and we wait another 4 years. And quite frankly, they're actually even looking at pushing that to be a 6 or 8 year process and cycle, which I have very strong feelings about that, because I think every 4 years is when it needs to come up, because it is an election season. And that does allow us to say, because if the Charter Review Commission passes the item, it doesn't mean that it's changing the charter. It means they're going to come back and ask you. And so if it passes them and they feel like it's important enough to be a ballot measure, then it goes in the ballot, and then you get to decide. And so I think, to understand that should happen in a regular election cycle every 6 years, I don't know if that helps us get to where people are really keeping an eye on that governance and the layers of governance.
Yeah, and I think with how quickly we are growing as a county, how fast things can change. I mean, I don't know that 6 years would cover the amount that we have to cover. So
yeah, and I think 8 years. I mean, if you get out 8 years and you look at the growth we've had, and so every 10 years is census, and I think my district added 60,000 new residents in the last 10 years, and I think that's an undercount.
Yeah.
So we're talking about potentially missing opportunities for how to make sure that growth is happening in a manageable and sustainable way, and really alleviate also potential suffering. Right? There's a lot of these things are looking at ways that government can best serve the people. So I don't see. To me, every 4 years still feels like it's far enough out that we're adapting to whatever the new potential ballot measure was, without really hemming in, I think, staff. Because I think that issue was, people are having to take that whole year out to investigate all these topics. Well, it's worth it, right? It's worth it. If it's creating what is going to be their governing documents forever in the future, it's worth that time.
Yeah. I like the word that you use, manageable. I think that's a really key word there when we're talking about this, is because it is growing. That it's unavoidably growing, the entire state, but especially our county, especially our district.
Yes.
And how are we keeping up with it? How are we keeping eyes on it? How are we making sure everybody has what they need? So
exactly. Well, it's another one of the topics is whether or not having an additional commission seat or more than one is necessary at this time. So, I mean, I'd be curious to hear what you think. I think my staff here would agree. We work so hard, and we feel like the work is never done, because there are so many needs in our community, and our resources are hemmed in. Right now there's 3 of us total, and I think that's a small team for 260,000 people. And so I would say that maybe it's not for me to make a decision about whether additional commission seats go on the ballot, but I think it's a worthy investigation for this Charter Review Commission.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that you deserve to have a say in as well. So.
Exactly. All right, so I think I added a category on my little to-do list for this conversation. Mm-hmm. Places we've been, people we've seen, because we've had some really great engagements.
Such a good month.
Yes.
It really did.
And I know I'm probably going to leave people off this list, so I want to apologize ahead of time. Thank you for either having some time, spending some time with us, or meeting with us, and hopefully if we forgot, we will remember you on the next go.
Inviting us to your facility.
Exactly.
We've had such a busy month.
Exactly.
It was so much fun.
I'm going to start with the most kind of top of mind one, which is where I was last night. I had the opportunity to meet and greet with and to see the installation of the brand new American Legion post in Horizon West. Horizon West, of course, unincorporated Orange County, growing so fast. And, people think of it as shiny new buildings, but really there's so many great old souls and a lot of people who really care about their neighbors, and especially about, making sure that we're taking care of each other. And of course, American Legion, what they do is make sure no soldier left behind. They take care of their veteran brothers and sisters. And so this new Legion post, it's such an exciting group and organization, and they're growing so fast. If you want information about that, I can share the information with you. I'm thrilled that they are our friends and neighbors. So that was really cool. That was last night.
Yeah.
And then let's backtrack from there, because I think right before that we were at the Dream Center, which is in the East Winter Garden area. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful facility.
Incredible.
Didn't you love going?
It was. There is no other word to describe it but beautiful, because every section tells its own story.
Exactly.
There was the the coffee room, which was about community and breaking bread together, and then there was the worshiping room, which was, it was everything told such a very clear story, and you just felt very comfortable from the second you walked in.
Second you walked in, and you realized that even though the Dream Center it's a nonprofit organization, that they do community-based outreach and work in their mission, that it's really a community center. That it's a center that people go to for a variety of needs. So my commitment to them is to really try really hard to be a good leader in getting them the resources they need so they can do the great things they're doing right there in the community. And sometimes trying to connect the resources we have with the people that need them is our biggest stumbling block. So, I so appreciate the time they took to show us around and talk about their programming and to talk about their challenges. And we'll be sharing very soon. They have an upcoming fundraiser, and we want to try to promote that. Mm-hmm. And we want to make sure that if you are interested in helping them, or if you need their help, that we can be a facilitator for that.
And you mentioned something while we were there that I want to make sure we bring up, is oftentimes we get a lot of folks who will grab us at a community meeting or something and be like, hey, I want to donate, I want to volunteer my time, I really don't know where to go. Mm-hmm. And I think that being able to connect you all with our internal, they're internal District 1s, right? They're our partners, and just making sure that people know where they can dedicate their time to, it's such an important thing. It's
so true. And this area that the Dream Center's in, we have the Christian Service Center, we've got Matthew's Hope, we have 8 Weeks. There are nonprofits that are really taking on distinct challenges for our community and making huge life in-depth decision programming efforts to pull people who may have fallen through the cracks if they had been up to government. And I'm not saying that we don't do things right, because I think we work really hard in Orange County, but we cannot do it alone, and we have to rely on our nonprofit partners because they are there. And this is, you're talking about people whose entire hearts and souls are dedicated to these missions. So I couldn't be any more grateful for the work they're doing there. And I know they work really closely with our Orange County staff at the Maxey Center and continuing to make great strides in programming in East Winter Garden. So I think there's going to be more good stuff on the horizon. Stay tuned. Let me know if you're interested in volunteering or want to support, and we'll connect you with those great people over there.
I can't wait to go back out there.
I know. It's really great.
Just up the road?
Oh, yeah, we want to go visit.
Literally right up the road.
Exactly, all in walking distance.
Yeah.
Orange County in that area committed to a neighborhood center for families. And what that means is that our community-based programming has brick and mortar there. And so if you are a resident of Orange County, you don't have to worry about being either a city or a county resident. Look at that. Here we go again. You can go in there and get some help. And I mean that in the way that they can help you fill out paperwork for some benefits. They can help you take a look at how to get some services done somewhere else. So they have senior services, they have after school programming, they have a counselor that was provided actually through our mental health programming. And so they do a really great job. I think that we don't talk about them enough, and getting that word out there so that they can really be the safety net that they were intended to be. So I'm committed to trying to help make sure that the programming we approve here, which we get to see on consent agenda, right? We see the programming coming through, we're paying for it, we want that resource. It goes out there. Are we making sure that you're getting to that resource? Are your neighbors getting to that resource? Do you know somebody that needs a little bit of extra help?
Yeah.
We want to fill that gap in making sure that they're getting where we're putting those resources.
Yeah, and it might sound like we're using rather ambiguous language with like, do you need help? Do you need resources? But that's intentional, because there's very little they can't connect you with.
That's right.
Whatever that is, like that's very intentional language. I mean, right. I remember them saying like, if you needed passport assistance or diapers, like it's such a wide. It's such a wide range. That's the best way to put it. Whatever your need is, if they are not able to provide you that assistance, they will connect you with who can.
Yeah. So I said that they had a counselor that was for mental health, but they also have case managers.
Yeah.
So you're talking about completely different types of services, and And sometimes people don't even know where to start.
It's like a congressional office. There's case managers for your members of Congress or for the Senate. But
you don't even know where to start, I think, sometimes, and this is in your neighborhood. So I do think it's important that if you have not been by and you live in the Winter Garden area, drop by.
Yeah.
Say hi. They're so awesome, so friendly. They were so kind to us. And we felt really grateful that we got a bilingual staff member in there.
They invited us for bingo.
They invited us for bingo. They have books you can check out. So anyway, wonderful, wonderful place.
Great service.
And then right next door is actually the West Orange County Magic Center, which is our Parks and Recreation Center. There's like a multi-purpose gym. And I mean, you can go work out there. They have sports leagues there.
We learned so much at that center, and I would be remiss if I did not mention the most important lesson that we learned as an office, and that is Commissioner Wilson is an expert at pickleball.
No, I'm not.
Yes, she is.
I am not an expert at pickleball. But
she beat me and Drew.
But I at least kind of get it now, because we hear from so many people love pickleball. Pickleball seems like a blast. And you gotta love that the Parks and Rec staff are like, yeah, we'll set up a court. You can play a couple of hands,
They taught us about the camaraderie that the sport itself. So it was pickleball and basketball and volleyball were the big ones that they were telling us about. And it, for between the children that come after school, the seniors that come together as a group, and just anybody else that forms their little league.
They have these leagues that are just kind of friendly leagues.
It's a community center with that word being stressed because that's how they make friends.
And it's really a great gym for a really inexpensive membership, right? So if you just want to go for the gym part of it, and they have Zumba classes that are included, and they have all kinds of really cool things. But in addition to that, they have cardio machines and weight machines. So it's just, I think, an untapped resource for people who think they can't afford a gym. And I want to encourage you as an Orange County resident, that's all you need to be as an Orange County resident, to go in and get your membership there. I think the other part that I want to make sure I'm letting people know about, in a volunteer capacity again, is that they always need volunteer coaches. They have these great programs, and I, as a mother of 3 sports kids who did volunteer, my husband coached every single sport, even though he played only one maybe. I don't even know if that was the truth. That we need volunteers. You don't have to be an expert in it. But basketball, volleyball, those require volunteers. So if you're interested in that, or if you have a young person who kind of loves the structure and needs to be on a league, please, please, please reach out to us. We'll get you in touch with them. They are incredible. Our Parks and Rec staff loves what they do. COVID was a really tough time because all of these things that were really part of our seasonal structure, right? We knew when basketball season was coming, and we knew when summer camp was coming, and our kids got that social connection, and they got a place to get all their aggression out on a field. All that stuff went away during COVID. And so even though we've been done and back for a while, ramping those programs back up has taken time. And it takes a lot of community effort because it can't just be done with staff. So we still are really relying on so many volunteer positions for those programs. So let us know if you're interested in that, and we can connect you.
Yeah. Before we switch to our other community partners, I did think of another visit that Drew and I took here in the county. We actually got to tour the Orange County Corrections Department, and that was incredibly informative, so thorough. Things that I didn't expect or didn't really understand about our correction system and what our county really has to offer as far as rehabilitation goes.
Let me tell you, I think
we were blown away.
It is something that if you ever want more information, and our corrections division, our corrections department is always hiring, and they have some really incredible career paths. And so it's one of those things I try really hard to explain to people that I think your old school stereotype about what that would look like, our corrections facility would look like, just set it aside.
Yeah.
Because for starters, I think of it as our largest gated community, right? This is literally a community, it's a residence, people live there, which means they need all the things, right? So out of our budget, we figure out exactly what that looks like. And that includes everything from healthcare and making sure that there's a wide range of healthcare to GED programs, job training programs, drug and alcohol addictions. I mean, from start to finish. Now, I think there are people, probably not in our little sphere, because I do think we have such a compassionate our residents are so compassionate. But there are people that would say, well, why should my tax money go to pay for that? why am I providing that kind of training for somebody who's in jail? Well, let me tell you why. Because that's how you keep them from coming back to jail.
Yeah.
And the cheapest way that we can keep your tax dollars where you want to spend your tax dollars is to empty the jails of people who really just needed a decent job.
Yep.
And to get making sure that we've got things lined up for them. They have a certification to be able to do something out in the community that can keep them employed, keep their rent, and then we don't have to worry about housing them in what is the most expensive place to house them, which is in our corrections facility.
Yeah.
So yes, we can be compassionate and fiscally responsible.
Or even someone just to tell them that they can do those things. And that's where I really want to speak directly to the staff right now. Just, you could see it. We didn't even have to ask the question.
Fantastic.
Like, how do you feel about the residents? Or like, we don't have to ask because it was visible. There was relationships, there was first name basis, there was camaraderie, there was a lot of love in that building, and there is a lot of respect and just wanting the best for someone and to see them do well. And I really want to thank the corrections staff for showing us.
They're incredible, and I will tell you that the stats don't lie, right? The data doesn't lie. Yeah. And so what we have seen over the last 15 years is a steady decrease in the population there, even while our overall population is increasing. And that is in part due to good treatment programs, diversion programs, where if it's a nonviolent offender that we're getting them into treatment, and making sure that when people are leaving corrections, they have with them something they can do that they will prevent them from coming back, that will provide them a successful path forward. Floridians, not just here in Orange County, but all over the state, really prioritize when they put into our state constitution this idea of restoration of rights, that we believe in redemption. We believe in redemption and that people should have a second chance. And so in order to really have a second chance, it has to be very functional, right? We have to make sure that you get that GED and that we get you clean and clear and that we've got you a place that you can sleep at night.
The construction class was outstanding.
Oh my gosh.
They were building a whole house.
Yep.
It was
Isn't that
amazing.
incredible?
Yeah. Absolutely amazing. So kudos to y'all.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that we gave them the proper credit because it was just phenomenal.
No, and I'm glad you brought it up because once again, we get to see some of these items come through in the agenda. And, for instance, I think that, one of the budget items that came through recently was from financially paying for some of the stuff from the opioid settlement, right? So there was a settlement that counties that were heavily impacted by the opioid crisis were able to get money back from the drug manufacturers that we can utilize for some of these programs. And so, you talk about good use of dollars in trying to make sure that people aren't just getting the full treatment, but how do we prevent relapse and how do we prevent them from, potentially, dying upon release. So really, it is the full circle when you get to see it in the agenda. Then you get to go out there and you get to meet the staff, the corrections staff. And my ask of you is if you know somebody who's looking for a career path in something, or maybe they haven't even thought about it yet, to reach out. We can get you hooked up. They have job fairs out there, and they have opportunities not just in, sort of what you think of as conventional corrections job roles, but like in the healthcare part of it, in the diversionary part of it, in the nutrition services part of it. So there's just a lot. There's a lot of opportunity there. Yeah. Awesome.
We also had a fantastic meeting with our friends at iDignity.
iDignity, thank you so much to iDignity for continuing on their path to provide a service that is really difficult to find anywhere. So we talk about trying to reenter society. Can you imagine, and I'm just going to paint this picture for you because I got to meet a person who went through this, that you are coming out of a domestic violence situation, right? You are seeking support from a nonprofit. You reach out, you think this is the day I'm going to try to do this because I'm going to die if I don't, and that your abusive partner has destroyed every shred of your existing documentation. Your birth certificate's gone, your driver's license is gone, your ability to prove that you've ever lived anywhere in the area, it's all gone because they did that to control you. And I had never even heard of that type of domestic violence control, but it is more common than you would think. And it is one of many, many, many ways that people end up seeking help from iDignity. iDignity provides, so if you look at the logo for iDignity, it says ID. Because what they do is they help legal citizens, residents, people who have every single other piece of their puzzle put together, but they have no way to prove it. They have no piece of paper. They have no ID. And, I want you to sort of take this, if you're watching this right now, and the next few times that you are asked to use your ID for something, imagine what it would be like not to have that, right? Go pick up your kids at school. Go visit someone in the hospital. Go try to, get your library card, whatever it is. There are so many times that you need an ID. It doesn't have to be a fancy ID, just an ID, a way to prove you are who you are. And without that, you can't find a place to live. You can't check into a hotel. You can't pick up, sometimes your dry cleaning, right? Like there is literally such a vast array of things that prevent, the next step. And so hearing from people who couldn't apply to a job, couldn't apply to a school, couldn't apply to a training program, couldn't make their parole, they're like all these things.
Tour an apartment. They take your ID to tour.
That's right, to tour an apartment.
Everything. It was just so amazing to learn more about their organization and what ways that we can be better partners with them.
And we are. Orange County Supports, I have really honed in on this, is something that I feel really strongly about, because having a legal background, understanding that these are legal barriers, right? So they rely on attorneys that do pro bono work that will come in and help get some of these documents back to the people who need them, right? Reissuance of a birth certificate, reissuance of their social security number. And so having that kind of information and the help that a volunteer attorney or a volunteer caseworker can give, they do an outstanding job. They do probably more of that type of work here than in any organization of its kind across the country, and they still need more help. So if it's something that you are just now finding out about and you want more information, let me know. I will share that. They have ongoing fundraising needs, and they have volunteer opportunities, so we can help connect you with all of that.
Yeah, happily.
It's true. Okay, so from there to Brightline, which got to go to the. I know my days are very full.
I haven't been yet, but
yeah, my days are very full. And this one was the grand opening and first ever arrived train from South Florida into our train station here in the Orlando International Airport. And so, walking through and looking up at the board, and it said trains arriving, and it had like a bunch of times. I'm like, trains are arriving today. Felt really huge. I know that for those of you who know me, you know that I feel really strongly about getting cars off the road, and the only way we can do that is to try to figure out how we can move people around. And when we think about coming into Orlando now as a visitor, you have to get a car.
Yeah.
You have to have a car, right? You have come in from, let's say you're a resident of the UK, and you want to do like you do in the UK, which is you just ride the tube everywhere, and then you hop on the Eurorail to go over to Paris. If you come here, you rent a car, and then you're one more car sitting in traffic, bumper to bumper at 4:00 with us. To see this intercity, right, where we're connecting our cities as one more way to move people around gives me great hope for the future. The next step that they're working on is to get to Tampa. I don't know what comes after that, but I hope it's Atlanta.
I can't wait. It really, it's long overdue. It's long overdue, and I think that it's a new concept for a lot of Floridians. So
absolutely.
I didn't grow up here, so I grew up in a really train heavy area, and then went to grad school in DC and that kind of stuff. But we've got some down here. We've got the Amtrak, we've got the Sunrail, but to make it a major mode of transportation, like to go from
and to make it convenient.
Yeah.
Right. So once again, I think even our current bus system here, the reason why I don't take a bus to work is it's not convenient. I don't have a stop near me, and the one that's closest, which is still about 2 miles away, doesn't have a shelter, doesn't have a bench, sits in the grass, and maybe one bus every 2 hours goes by.
Yep. And
so it really has become prohibitive for anybody that doesn't want to drive or can't drive. And the idea of having a community where, like, in each stage of your life, right, before you turn 16 and get a driver's license, or after you age out of being able to drive, that you can't get around is terrifying.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of figuring out how to do that intermodal, right, where we can get around our community. But knowing that this inner city transportation is really the driving force a lot of times for the investment for the inner part, I'm thrilled. I was thrilled to see it. I'm so excited. I know it's not cheap. I understand that for people who are looking at those tickets, but it provides what I would say is something comparable to hopping on a flight, right? So you're looking at the time it would take to get down to OIA, to park there, to go over to maybe, a major carrier for a flight and fly to Miami. You would be paying 3 times that. And it's about the same amount of time. I think they're topping out speeds, Drew, over 100 miles per hour?
Yeah.
They're topping out speed over 100 miles per hour.
And it opens up a lot of opportunity for us as like Central Floridians as well, because I've never been to Miami.
Right.
Like that could be a weekend trip now.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
But you don't have to bring your car.
Right, I don't have to drive. Exactly. So
I 100% agree, and wanted to call out to anybody that's thinking about maybe one next year that we can.
Yeah.
Let's get it on the calendar. Let's go do it. Exactly. So it was very exciting, and we'll try to make sure that if there's events there, or if we hear about special deals they have coming, that we share that, because I think trying to make sure we're supporting so that other investors, right? Because Brightline's private. That's a private investment. That other investors see that type of investment is meaningful here
and has value. And
that's right.
We can grow it.
Exactly. All right. So we went through Dignity, Brightline, Dream Center, Neighborhoods. Oh, Nature Fest. How could I not say thank you to the Oakland Nature Preserve for everything they do every day, but especially on Nature Fest Day. What a fun event that was. Drew and I went out and had a blast talking to old friends, meeting new friends, seeing people from really all over the region. I got to meet people from the surrounding counties that came in, but a ton of people from my very own district. So hopefully some of you are hearing this right now. Nature Fest is a fundraiser and just a great community event for the Oakland Nature Preserve. The Oakland Nature Preserve is one of the few places we have in District 1 where you can go see some of our threatened species. You can go walk out onto Lake Apopka and see a historic lake that has undergone some tremendous challenges and has made its way back from really being functionally dead to what is now a vibrant place, biodiversity and ecosystem. Oakland Nature Preserve has incredible educational events for all ages and super fun things like yoga and firefly walks. So if you haven't been, put it on your calendar to go for one of those. If you didn't make it to Nature Fest, put it on your calendar for next year, because we're going to make that our tradition for sure. And if you are thinking about looking for a place to support that has that type of mission, I would encourage you to support their endeavors. They do such a great job, and I'm so proud to have them in my district and to try to support wherever I can. Am I missing anything on that, Drew? Because Drew came with me, so he's also a big fan.
I just want to echo the thank you. It was a great time.
It was so much fun. And, if I get to see bats, skunks, a gopher tortoise, a possum, my friends are never going to let me live down the fact that I said I love skunks on a live video feed. And I said, at least I didn't say I love snakes, even though I do love snakes. But I know that could be like cut and pasted for, any politician to be a really good one, right? It was such a great day. And to see the kids there absorbing and not fearful of any of those amazing creatures that we live around. That's the way that we grow sustainably, is to make sure our young people understand the importance of all the little creatures and all the big creatures, and that we need to be good neighbors, not just to the humans, but to our four-legged friends and to all of the systems that keep all of us alive. So it was really a great day. So thank you so much, Oakland Nature Preserve. Thank you, Drew, for being there for the day. And to everybody that participated, all the sponsors that were there. It was so cool to see Friends of Lake Apopka, and Matthew's Hope was there. So yeah, I was going to say friends from near and far, and what a great day. Okay, before I sign off, I want to remind everybody that this Saturday is actually Matthew's Hope's really big annual fundraiser. And of course, we try really hard to help them and support them every way we can. But I want to make sure that if you can go, it's going to be a blast. Their theme this year is steampunk. They're doing, it's always fun because it's always people from all over the community. They're doing the most important work in, I believe our entire area. I used to say Winter Garden, but they really have branched so much further out from Winter Garden, and they are really for homeless services. They're what we have. We rely so heavily on their mission and on their amazing people to take care of our homeless friends and neighbors, and we could all be there at any time. And I want to remind people of that. It's been really hard for me sometimes to go and engage the community and to hear people's lack of compassion and understanding that we're all, within the scope of being homeless at some point in our lives. And I think I can't imagine, that my community would turn its back on me. And so to see what Matthew's Hope does, that is all I can think about. That brings me comfort to know that if this was ever my family member or me, that they would be there for that. So remember that when you're thinking about who to support in the nonprofit world. And think about that even when you see people that are, potentially, without housing right now, that we need each other every day, and we need our organizations, and we need compassion and humility in order to be able to solve those problems. I think that was it, right?
Yeah, that was all we had.
I'm not going to get all choked up, but you know how much I love you, Matthew's Hope people, and I appreciate everything you do every day. All right, we'll share the link for that. I think we've already gotten, hopefully, their cool logo out for the steampunk.
Oh, yeah.
Coming dates, the CRC, like I said, Charter Review Commission, try not to acronym you, is coming up October 16th, and that's going to be at Windermere High School. So that's like, we try to find a place kind of central to the community. We also have a meeting coming up in the Tildenville Elementary School, I think cafeteria, for a federal grant that's going to be coming out for disaster recovery. And they're really looking for feedback from the community for how those grant dollars can be spent. There's going to be 2 of those. I'm hoping to also get to the south part of my district. I know Williamsburg has really been struggling with floodwaters. I know there's a lot of structures down there that could use some extra funds. So we're trying to make sure that we're setting up one of those meetings in the Williamsburg area. And then I think the next 2 BCCs out, the Windermere High School Stadium gets its final hearing. That's the last check mark before that's a done deal. So if you have thoughts about the Windermere High School Stadium, I think we have heard from so many people. Every single one of them has supported the move to bring the stadium on campus. We've heard from residents that are concerned about the noise or the lighting, and we're working really closely with them and the facilities from OCPS to make sure those things can be resolved now. We wouldn't have had that opportunity if we hadn't gone through this process to bring OCPS's their plans really to pull that from Scott Pine Park back onto campus. So I want to thank our friends at OCPS for their hard work. The Orange County Planning and Zoning that have done an unbelievable job of getting this through, because it was a lot of historical, I think, barriers to making sure that we were keeping our kids safe. And that was necessary, right? Friday nights, having them go a mile down the road where there was nowhere to shelter during a thunderstorm really was a disaster waiting to happen. So even though they're struggling with that right now as we speak, on Friday afternoons, I think about them and I look at the weather. But this is it. We're getting this approval across the finish line, and I can't wait to get onto campus for that first football game. All right, so did I miss anything?
No, I think that about wraps it up. I also want to give a quick thank you to all the residents who call us and email us and have been so patient with Drew and I, as we're the 2 staff members right now monitoring the inboxes and answering the phones, and just we're doing our best to get you guys all the information that we can. But we've had nothing but nice comments from them as well. Like, oh, thank you for helping me with that. Like, thank you guys for being patient with us, because we're both new. We are about 6 months in, are we?
Let me tell you something.
So
we live in dog years here, so I don't know. Could be 6 months, 6 years, or 6 days, because really we
appreciate your patience with us.
And the pace is so high,
Yeah.
and it's something that, you have to be someone really special to work here, because you have to be able to deal with, I think, that volume of subject matter, but also use compassion, which sometimes requires patience, right? So to be able to listen to somebody who's going through a really difficult time or suffering with trauma on the phone or in person, knowing that 70 other emails are sliding in while they're talking, that takes a special type of person. And the people that I have been fortunate enough to put on my team here are qualified, not just technically, but also they have the biggest hearts. And so that to me feels like, the rest of it falls into place, right? So we know that there are days where we feel like we're running around like chickens with our fire here, but as long as we're working in the right direction for our people, we all feel really confident. We support you, you support us, and just stay in touch. Thank you for being good to my people.
Yeah, and they are. They are. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys so
Awesome.
much.
All right, we will see you next time. We're going to make this a weekly occurrence, so we'll see you soon.
Bye.